Yeah, so work doesn't have to hurt, it's a fact. It's just a fact. And we're in a good spot to talk about that here and now, because we're all in a spot where we work for people who completely and totally understand that. So why is this important? Well, I just said why. But most importantly, I think the fact that I'm standing here even talking about this subject is pretty powerful. We have more opportunities while working here to take care of ourselves, less excuses not to. We have support from our employer and our colleagues. We do things that I have never seen before in my 12 years of work experience. I've never seen people walking on treadmills while we're having meetings. I've never seen people talk about the type of equipment that they use at home. I've never heard of some of the things that we use. I've purchased many, many things since I started working here. So it's a blessing and a curse. But I think the most important application about this is that we are in the business of building systems and experiences. And there is a direct application for what we do at work into what we do in the rest of our lives. So if we want to become our best selves at work and otherwise, and I suggest we do it all the way around, I suggest we take everything we know and everything we do on a daily basis and apply it to the most complicated systems you're ever going to work with. The most complex systems you will ever work with are your body and your mind. And I suggest you get to know them very, very well. And there are several ways to do that. And I'll tell you how I did it. But reason being, your body and mind are designed to do specific things in specific ways. And the asterisk there is that we are still programmed the way we were when we were chasing our food and things were chasing us. Our bodies and minds are really still programmed that way. There's a lot of scientific evidence to support that. So our bodies want to move around. Our minds want to get up and walk around, and our minds still actually respond to rejection, just like they did back then, when rejection was basically a death sentence. If you were rejected from the tribe, you were done. Now think of that. Think of how many rejections you get a day when somebody doesn't like your stuff on Facebook, or respond to your Slack post, or give you a for everything you say. These are little rejections, and over time, that builds up in there. So basically, we are constantly, as a species, working in, our systems are working in conflict with how they're supposed to be working, because we're dealing with a situation now, the way we work and live, that's very different than the way we are designed. And that creates dissonance in our bodies. We don't work in optimum. We all have something that doesn't work right, quote unquote, and it affects everything you do, whether you know it or not. So how do we kind of turn that around and be our best selves? If you can, you must, and you can. You have to try, and you have to try the right way. If you try the right way, you will get 100% of the benefit of everything you do. So try the right way. What the hell does that mean? You have to learn the signals of your body. If you understand how your body works, how the body works, and then how your body works, because everybody's a little different, and your mind too, then you're going to understand what to do about things. When you feel those things not working at optimum, you're going to understand better how to come back at that and combat it. If you find the root cause, why those signals are happening, what is my body telling me, and where is that really coming from? Only then can you fix that and then maintain the issue. So applying all that is difficult, and it's the concept of awareness and the fact that you own every piece of you, and it's your responsibility to deal with you and how your body works and what it says to you and what you say back to it and what you do to it. The way that I've boiled this down is there are 4 main areas that you have control over. And if you don't have control over it, figure out how to gain control over it. These are your environment, your physical health, your personal relationships, and your diet. And these are all very interconnected. So if we're looking at these 4 things, and we boil it down to these 4 things, these are 4 pretty complex things. So the only way I can describe to you how to gain awareness and put some focus on these things is to tell you some things that have happened to me and how I learned to deal with myself through the past maybe 10 to 12 years of my career and my life in general. So just like everybody else, it's full of ups and downs, and over time, things have been really awesome, and things have been really shit-tastic. That happens to all of us, and not all these things work in tandem. And that's the hard part. It's trying to find that balance and get everything to work the way it should. So the reason that this all kind of came up for me in coming here to talk about this is that my career as a designer was almost over before it started. I was working at the Politico, and I don't know, how much you know about that, but at the time they were just launching, and this is a serious organization that is very serious about creating news content for political news that is followed by people who really, really follow political news. They're a very serious organization, and then they had a lot of things to prove to themselves and to all the people that invested in them. And it turned out to be a super high stress situation where the pressure to produce was very high. We had to produce a product every day. It's a product that took a lot of care to produce. And you could be fired at any second for the smallest of mistakes. They did not tolerate anything. So this is where things started to get hairy for me because I started to experience a ton of physical pain while working there. I allowed that environment and those people in it to intimidate me into sitting in front of my computer at a workspace that was not set up correctly and producing without a break for hours and hours and hours a day. The pain started in my hands, went up my wrists to my elbows, shoulders, and over the course of 2 years, I allowed it to destroy my entire body. I couldn't stretch. I would hold my hand against the wall and try to stretch it, and it was excruciating. It was absolutely excruciating. So something had to give. I didn't have much control over the environment, but there were things I did have control over. So as I let this go on for 2 years, by the way. That's how long this went on, and that's why it spread so far over my body. And as those 2 years went on, the economy wasn't doing me any favors so far as my work environment was concerned. So I did what I had to do just to make sure the bills got paid and all that. But the things that I could control, I started to learn and change. And my learning and changing was all about drastic changes, at least at first. It was a really nice night, and I was sitting outside with my partner at the time, and after a great deal of thought, I announced that I would be giving up fried food, alcohol, and red meat for at least 30 days, and that I'd be spending a lot more time taking 90-minute yoga classes in a 110-degree room where you're forced to look at yourself in a mirror. Sign me up, right? Do it. And I did that. I did those things, and I gave those things up for much longer than 30 days. And I've been doing Bikram yoga for 6 years. I've been doing it ever since. And this was tough. This was not only hard physically and emotionally, it was also difficult because, as you see, the blue relationship line is down in the crapper with the economy. That relationship, that person I sat with and said I was going to do all this, was very offended by all this. This was tough for them as well. And that relationship ended over this. All for the better, obviously. But the one thing that was still happening was this pain was not leaving my body. Not the way I wanted it to. I was still experiencing stiffness and things that I didn't want to feel, and it was frustrating. So I still had work to do. So I started taking more control over my work environment. I started freelancing, which was a bit of a natural progression at the time because of the type of things that were going on due to the economy. There were some layoffs and things like that. Full-time jobs were not easy to get a hold of or keep a hold of at the time. So freelancing allowed me to keep a job and be employed continuously, and also to take more control over my work environment. This is the first time I heard of or set up a standing workstation. It's the first time I researched and thought of the concept of moving around more often. I did yoga classes at lunchtime, just things that I'd never done before. And then in the middle of all this awesomeness, I moved and I started a relationship with someone who was, again, not approving of my methods. My methods were always being tested, it seemed, by a person or an environment, a work environment. And this person was actually jealous specifically of Bikram yoga. I spent too much time doing yoga. It was too much of a time commitment. That relationship also ended. So, tell me I can't do Bikram yoga, I won't be here next year. It's a very serious matter. We are very tight. But what happens is I again allow a person or an environment to get to me, and I say, okay, all right, this is what I have to do now. And I don't do what I'm supposed to do, and I fall off the wagon, and everything gets worse again. I'm in pain, I'm in a bad spot in my head. So what do I do? In the middle of all that mess as well, I find out that I have this heart arrhythmia. So I have long QT syndrome. And what long QT syndrome is it's a heart arrhythmia where the spaces between the beats of your heart sometimes get longer than others. So when you get diagnosed with long QT syndrome, the first thing they tell you to do is stay hydrated. It's unacceptable not to be hydrated. I've gotten dehydrated. Don't do it. It's a gasping for air, begging for help situation. Don't do it. Number two, you have to stay away from stress. You cannot get stressed out. Now, how convenient is that? I've been diagnosed with a disease where I could actually go to the doctor and get a note that says I can't be stressed out. It's fantastic, right? And the other thing you can't do is exercise alone. So I felt that hydration and not exercising alone were pretty easy things to get a hold of, but not being stressed out, that's a difficult one. Every time I've ever said to anybody in my family or any of my peers that I have this situation and, well, what do you do about that? Do you take medication? No, I can't take any medications. That's the other fun fact about long QT syndrome. You can't take a ton of prescribed medications and things that come over the counter. So there's no medication you can take. There's nothing you can do. You need to chill out. So that's a serious challenge, right? Especially in the state I was in. So here is where things started to get on the up and up for me. But there was another low point. I had surgery on my ovary. Awesome, right? So every woman in this room knows that when you go through a large hormonal biological change, it is hell. And every dude in this room is going, please don't expand on that. And I won't. Because you guys all know women. You have women in your life. You can figure that out. But I did have this surgery, and I was in a place where I couldn't take all this medication that they would normally prescribe for pain, for anything. So I had this heart arrhythmia. I've got this surgery. Now what do I do? So I started seeing a holistic doctor because there had to be a way to turn this around. There had to be a way to treat myself and my situation and get myself back to where I needed to be. And what that did for me is just increase my learning. I had already learned a lot through yoga about what it feels like when something's stiff here. What do you do? How does it feel when your hips are in line? How does it feel when your shoulders are in line with your hips, with your ankles? How does it feel to stretch and not feel that pain anymore? It's amazing. It's amazing what physical movement can do for you, but it's even more amazing what food as medicine can do for you. And understanding what you eat and what it's going to do to you or what it's not going to do to you are extremely, extremely valuable things. I cannot stress enough how excellent it is to just understand that, because if you do bad, at least you know what's going to happen. And at least you know how to combat it. I'm 90% gluten-free, for example, and that's by choice. I'm not allergic. So since I've been detoxed of gluten, if I eat gluten now, no, bad. But I have some supplements from my trusty holistic doctor that help me digest those things better, and things move along in a much better way. So where we're at now, coming from 2015 into 2016, I'm in a much better place. I understand diet very well. I understand my body very well, better than I ever have. And I learn every day more and more about what my body does, how it reacts to things, what's going to happen. I have a much better idea of what's going to happen, when and how. And I'll repeat it, this is the best place that I've ever been as far as an employer to do these types of things. You can take care of yourself here. Your methods will not be questioned. I have been in other places where I've talked about Bikram yoga and people have looked at me like I was out of my mind. You might think I'm out of my mind as well because I described it, but I don't get questioned. I don't get questioned about stand up, sit down, go walk away. I'm at the client site. It's a total shit show. Go outside, take a walk. Nobody questions that here. They completely understand the why. And if they don't, they ask. And it's not an issue. So if you're not doing this, if you don't understand your body, or you're suffering from something that's bugging you, figure it out. Feel it. Acknowledge it. Bring awareness to it. You're in the best place possible to do that professionally. And I've only been here for 6 months. And I can say that already. You know, and at home as well, I have a fantastic wife who tells me all the time how proud, as she texted me this morning, she said, I'm so proud of you, you put a lot of work in, and I hope you do really well at this presentation. And I hear that from her, and I heard it again when I presented this to Mary and Alex. The last time we talked about it, they said, we're proud of you. This is a big deal. You're sharing a lot of personal information. This is important for people to hear, and we are proud of you. And I can't thank you guys enough for allowing me to be up here and talk about this. And if anybody else wants to have any questions or wants to say anything further to me about it, or wants to talk about this further, I'm happy to do that later. I'm here all week. But you know, if the point is, if you can, you must, and you can do it. Try the right way. You'll get 100%. 100%. I love you all for listening. Thank you.